Few days ago, I talked about one great contract from every NHL team. If you saw that video, you probably saw this one coming, and if you haven't seen that video, check it out when you get the chance. This offseason, we have seen a lot of big contracts given out because of the rising cap, and even though none of those contracts have had the opportunity to age poorly, there are many contracts in the NHL that do not look great in 2026. So in this video, we will be looking at one horrible contract from every NHL team, and horrible is a very strong word, and not all teams necessarily have a horrible contract, so we'll be looking at one of their worst at the very least. For the Anaheim Ducks, we have AJ Greer at $4.5 million a year. The $18 million man, Leo Carlson, was definitely up for consideration here, but I think that he would have gotten around $15 or $16 million without the offer sheet, so it's a $2 or $3 million overpay. However, I can't blame the Ducks for that, but what I can blame them for is this AJ Greer contract. Greer is a solid physical presence, but he can be pretty dirty and only put up 32 points last season. And the reason he put up those points last season is because there are no other players on the Panthers. I do feel like the Ducks did good moving on from a dirty player like Radko Gudas, just to overpay for another one with AJ Greer, and it goes on for 4 more years. For the Boston Bruins, I have Elias Lindholm at $7.75 million a year. When Boston picked up Lindholm a few years ago, he had been a Selke candidate type of player, but I don't think he's been that good in Boston. Last season, he had 48 points in 69 games, and the season before, he only had 47 in 82. Especially playing with Pastrnak and Morgan Geekie, he should have way more assists at least, and the production just doesn't match the money that he makes. For the Buffalo Sabres, I'm going with Owen Power at $8.35 million a year. Owen Power was a first overall draft pick in 2021, but I do not feel like he has lived up to this cap hit. He is not as responsible defensively as you'd like, and he only had 29 points in 82 games last season, and at $8.35 million a year, you'd expect a lot more from him. The Sabres are definitely paying for potential here, it's just that Owen has not grown into that potential quite yet. For the Calgary Flames, I'm going with Jonathan Huberdeau at $10.5 million a year. When Huberdeau was traded to the Flames for Matthew Tkachuk, he was coming off of a career 115-point season, and it seemed like he was the better player in the trade, but it's kind of been all downhill for the last few seasons for him. He hasn't gotten over 40 points in the last 4 years on the Flames, and last season had 25 points in 50 games. Luckily, the Flames are not struggling with money right now, so it isn't a big deal, but this cap hit is high for him. For the Carolina Hurricanes, I've picked Jesper Kotkaniemi at $4.82 million a year. The Hurricanes have some of the best contracts in the entire league, so this one definitely sticks out like a sore thumb. This is so funny because the only reason that Kotkaniemi is even on the Hurricanes is because the Canadiens offer-sheeted Sebastian Aho, and the Canes got some petty payback on the Canadiens and offer-sheeted Kotkaniemi. For the original contract, the signing bonus was even $20, a nod to Aho's number being 20. Kotkaniemi had some upside early in his career, but he just hasn't been able to figure it out at an NHL level. He only had 9 points in 42 games last season, but he is a Stanley Cup champion at the end of the day. This is an 8-year deal too, with 3 more years left on it. Luckily, the Canes did great on basically every other contract, and they can live with this one. A horrible contract on the Chicago Blackhawks is Patrick Kane's $8 million contract. I get that he is returning to the Hawks, and they will probably sell millions of dollars worth of merch, and the Blackhawks have the money to afford it, but this is too much money. Kane is 37 years old and just had a 57-point season in 67 games, which is good, but he hasn't made more than $4 million since 2023, and now he's going to make $8 million for 2 years. It also makes me question why he joined the team. It was apparently between Buffalo and Chicago, and in interviews he's saying it's because he wants to be back in Chicago and play with these young guys, but I feel like the only reason that he joined the Hawks is because they gave him the bag. At most, the Sabres would have given him $5 million, and in my opinion, the extra $3 million meant way more to him than playing with any of these young kids. For the Colorado Avalanche, I went with Brett Kulak at $4.5 million a year. Kulak is a decent defensive defenseman who has played top 4 minutes for the past couple of years. Picking from the Avalanche was pretty difficult. Their stars are all on fair contracts, and they have the bottom 9 really under control too. This is at most probably a $1 million overpay, but it does go on for 5 more years. And I think that Kulak is better fit for a third pairing role, and by the end of this deal, I think that's where he will end up. With the cap going up, it is definitely manageable, but in my opinion, the worst in the team. For the Columbus Blue Jackets, I'm going with Charlie Coyle at $6 million a year. And I don't think the cap hit is horrible right now. Coyle is a super responsible defensive player and had a good 58 points last season. The problem I have with this contract is that it goes on for 6 more years, meaning that Coyle will be 40 when this expires. He's a really great leader on this team and provides some really good grittiness, but I do feel like this contract will not age very well. For the Dallas Stars, I'm going with Tyler Seguin at $9.85 million a year. This sucks because Seguin was one of my favorite players growing up. Unfortunately, injuries have made it really difficult for Seguin the past few years. Last season, he had 17 points in 27 games. Seguin hasn't played more than 75 games in a season since 2023, and when he does play, he doesn't produce enough to justify this contract. Luckily, the contract ends after next season, and his contract coming off the books is probably how the Stars got Robertson to stick around, because if this went on for any longer, it would be very tough to give Robertson the big contract that he wants. For the Red Wings, I have JT Compher at $5.1 million a year. A really good shutdown center who had a killer season on the Avs a few years ago, leading to this contract. But since joining the Red Wings, he has just been getting worse and worse every season. He had a 52-point season on the Avs, then he joins the Red Wings and has a 48-point season, then a 32-point season, and most recently, a 28-point season, with his plus-minus also getting worse every season as well. He is either regressing or just not fitting in with the Red Wings. Either way, $5.1 million is a lot for what he's done in the past 2 years. For the Edmonton Oilers, I'm going with Tristan Jarry at $5.375 million a year. I was very tempted to go with the hilariously long Trent Frederic contract, but I think that the Oilers taking on this Jarry one is even worse. Frederic at least showed potential that made the Oilers sign him for 8 years at $3.85 million a year, and Frederic had an abysmal 7 points in 74 games last season, but the Edmonton Oilers traded assets for Jarry, knowing that he was inconsistent, knowing that he had an .892 save percentage the year prior, and knowing that his cap hit was a huge overpay. Jarry was so horrible for the Oilers to the point where he was not even backup caliber. He was a backup goalie for $5.375 million a year, having an .857 save percentage during his time on the Oilers. And for that, Jarry is my choice for a horrible contract on the Oilers. For the Florida Panthers, I'm going with Jacob Markstrom at $6 million a year. Markstrom has basically had 4 tough years, and I do not view him as a reliable starter, let alone a $6 million one. Last season, he had an .883 save percentage, and I think this could provide some problems for the Panthers this season. In my head, the Panthers are going to be a Stanley Cup contender once again, but with Markstrom in net, I don't know if he'll be reliable enough. The contract only goes for 2 years, so they won't be stuck with him, but I don't think he is going to be the replacement for Bobrovsky that they are expecting. For the LA Kings, I'm going with Trevor Moore at $4.2 million a year. The Kings do not have any egregious contracts. Going into next season, Doughty is probably the worst at $11 million, but it's ending after this season, so I'll give it a pass. For Moore, he is a $4.2 million third liner. He had 57 points 3 years ago, but since then his production has gone down every year, with him only having 32 points last season. For the Minnesota Wild, I'm choosing Marcus Foligno at $4 million a year. Foligno is a physical fourth liner with 2 years left on this deal. He does exactly what he needs to do for the Wild on the fourth line, but for $4 million, that is a lot. Last season, he had 13 points in 56 games. I think that Nick is the better brother, and he only makes $1 million a year. Marcus gets all the money and all the hair. Such an unfair world we live in. If you're enjoying this video so far, please Scott Stevens smash the subscribe button so this channel can get off the floor and on the board. Thank you all so much for your support so far. For the Montreal Canadiens, I'm going with Josh Anderson at $5.5 million a year. Montreal is a team that has a lot of really, really good contracts in their top end, so they can afford to overpay a little bit for their bottom six, and I think this contract is an example of that. 7 years ago, Montreal signed Anderson to this deal, but I don't think he ever really was able to live up to that cap hit. Last season, he had 23 points in 72 games. Luckily, this deal is on its last year, and Anderson was pretty good in the playoffs too. For the Nashville Predators, I'm going with Jonathan Marchessault at $5.5 million a year. When he joined the Predators, it seemed like it would be a good reunion between him and Stamkos, and the Predators would be going back to the playoffs, but that definitely did not happen. Last season, he had 31 points in 62 games and just seems pretty disinterested in being in Nashville. He's entering the third year of a 5-year contract as well. Apparently, he has wanted out of Nashville for a while now, but with the subpar production, it is going to be hard to move that contract. For the Devils, I have Timo Meier at $8.8 million a year. This bums me out because I really felt like Meier was on an upward trajectory when he joined the Devils, and the Devils obviously seem to as well. Last year, he only had 44 points in 77 games, getting first-line minutes. He's also starting year 4 of an 8-year deal, and legitimately just had his worst season since he was 21 years old. If you're making this much and you're getting as many minutes as he is, you have to be producing more, and he just isn't. My pick for the New York Islanders is Tony DeAngelo at $4.5 million a year. He produces fine, having 35 points last season, but he does very little defensively and is a notorious dickhead. He's good on the power play, but very, very irresponsible in any other situation, and he has 2 years left on his deal. For the New York Rangers, I am picking JT Miller at $8 million a year. It is crazy because 2 years ago, JT Miller had 103 points, and this contract was an absolute steal, but things really seem to have fallen off with him. Last year on the Rangers, he had 53 points in 68 games. He joined the team and became captain immediately, but it's hard to watch him sometimes. Sometimes he just skates around with complete apathy. He had 3 killer seasons on the Canucks and seems to have been on a really big downswing since then. This contract has 4 years left on it, so hopefully Miller can get back into form soon. For the Ottawa Senators, I have Andrei Burakovsky at $5.5 million a year. Last season, he had 33 points in 75 games. Burakovsky was on the Blackhawks last season, and Ottawa fans, I'm rooting for the Sens next season, but Burakovsky was an absolute offensive black hole last year. He was absolutely brutal. Like, there would be times where the Hawks would have a rush or a great opportunity, and Burakovsky would always find a way to mess it up. This should be a league minimum trial right now for how he played in the second half of last season. I'm just glad he isn't on the Blackhawks anymore. For the Philadelphia Flyers, I'm picking Jamie Drysdale at $6.25 million. Drysdale is an offensive defenseman that does not produce much offense, and Daniel Briere is still butthurt that he traded Cutter Gauthier for him. This deal is just kicking in this season and goes for 4 years. I understand that this contract is paying for Drysdale's potential, but he only had 32 points last season. Hopefully at the end of these 4 years, he reaches the $6.25 million cap hit, but for an okay offensive second-line defenseman, 6.25 is an overpay. For the Pittsburgh Penguins, we have Chris Letang at $6.1 million a year. Letang has unfortunately not been aging very gracefully. He has 2 years left on a 6-year deal. He is still fine defensively, but he oftentimes tries to make plays that he just can't make anymore. And that's understandable because he's 39 years old, but he hasn't been able to transition and change his game as he ages. He is a legend of this team, so you got to keep him on, but this cap hit is definitely more than what he should be making at this point in his career. For the San Jose Sharks, their worst contract has to be Darnell Nurse at $9.25 million a year. The Sharks took on Nurse and his whole entire contract, not requiring the Oilers to retain anything. I honestly can't believe they took on this thing, and it's their worst contract. Last season, Nurse had 24 points and isn't very good defensively either. I don't know where he really fits into the Sharks roster or what the Sharks are expecting from him, but either way, he's getting paid way too much to do it. If he finds his way on the Sharks and just becomes a killer, I would love that for him. But there are 4 years left on this deal, and I'm not confident he's going to make that jump. For the Seattle Kraken, I'm choosing Chandler Stevenson at $6.25 million a year. Stevenson is best fit for a third-line center, but he's making $6.25 million a year to play second-line center for the Kraken. Last season, Stevenson had 49 points, which isn't too bad. My biggest issue with this contract is the term. Stevenson is signed for 5 more years. He is currently 32 years old, so this goes until he's 37, which I don't love. I really think that the Kraken need to find their identity, and investing so much into a player like Chandler Stevenson doesn't seem like the right way to go. For the St. Louis Blues, I'm going with Jordan Binnington at $6 million a year. After having that sensational rookie season, he has signed very fair contracts with the Blues, but Father Time is just catching up to him. Last year was really tough for Binnington. He only had 13 wins, 20 losses, and an .873 save percentage. Luckily, Hofer has joined the Blues at just the right time to take over the starting position, but Binnington's contracts will still be around for one more season. For the Tampa Bay Lightning, I'm picking Victor Hedman at $8 million a year. Hedman is still really solid offensively and a great leader on the Lightning, but his defense has been getting worse. Last season was tough for him too, with 17 points in 33 games. His points weren't great and his defense is falling off, so $8 million is becoming a lot for him. There are also still 3 seasons left on his deal, so if he's starting to fall off now, it will definitely not be great in a few years. For the Maple Leafs, I'm going with Sergei Bobrovsky at $7 million a year. I've talked about Bobrovsky a few times on this channel and my feelings about this contract. Last season, Bob hit an .877 save percentage, and I just feel like $7 million is a lot for the season he is coming off of. I get that he has a Hall of Fame career and recently took the Panthers to the finals 2 years in a row, but his regular season stats have not been great for 2 years. Stolarz had a better save percentage than him last season, and I feel like he would be more adequate as a starter at this point. Bob could have a killer season and prove me completely wrong, but right now this contract seems like a lot. For the Utah Mammoth, I'm going with Jack McBain at $4.25 million a year. McBain is the 4th liner for the Mammoth, making $4.25 million. He throws checks and is fine on the PK, but isn't a huge contributor otherwise. Last season he had 25 points, but that's expected from a 4th liner. The question is, why is he being paid $4.25 million a year? For $4.25, You'd hope to have a player that can contribute a little more offensively or defensively, but McBain isn't necessarily great at either. For the Vancouver Canucks, we have Elias Pettersson at $11.6 million. Canucks fans, you knew this one was coming. Pettersson was supposed to be the guy.
You were the chosen one!
Being an Elias Pettersson fan has more ups and downs than a roller coaster. 3 years ago, he had 102 points and looked like a monster again, and now he is coming off of a 74-game, 51-point season. He has a chance to reach those heights again, but it isn't looking so good. It would take a change of scenery or new line mates or something, but right now, Pettersson is playing like a $7 million player. I hope that he can stay healthy and get back to the heights that he was once at, though. For the Vegas Golden Knights, I'm going with Rasmus Andersson at $8.5 million a year. Anderson is a fine offensive producer with 47 points last season, but he struggles defensively. During the playoffs, there were many times where Anderson made a mistake or gave up the puck at a very inopportune time. For $8.5 million, you should be getting an elite offensive defenseman or a great all-around defenseman, but I don't think Anderson is either of those. Vegas just signed him to this contract for 7 years too, so there's a lot of time on it. Vegas is a team that is built for playoffs, and I'm really surprised that they signed him to this big contract when he was so brutal in the playoffs last season. For the Washington Capitals, I'm going with Pierre-Luc Dubois at $8.5 million a year. Last season, Dubois had 19 points in 29 games, and the year before he had 66 points in 82 games. I'm not convinced on PLD yet. He is a fine second-line center, but $8.5 million is a lot for what he does. Especially with being injured last season, he'll have to bounce back this season if he wants to contribute in a meaningful way. $8.5 million a year is a lot for a 66-point healthy season. PLD has had a lot of trouble fitting into the teams he is on, and he seems to have found his home in Washington and probably got a little bit overpaid for it. For the Winnipeg Jets, I'm going with Neil Pionk at $7 million a year. Pionk signed this $7 million deal for his offensive abilities, but his defense isn't great, and his offense has already been kind of falling off. The contract is entering the second year of a 6-year deal, and last year Pionk had 12 points in 51 games. Even with a full season, that's only like 20 points. The Jets have done really well with their contracts, but this one just feels like a big miss. This contract takes him until he's 35, and I feel like his production is falling off already. And that was one horrible contract from every NHL team. It is definitely varying degrees of horrible, but either way, we were able to find at least one from each team. Thank you all so much for watching. Comment your thoughts below, like if you enjoyed, and subscribe for more.